All right, so sorry about that extra L. It's right on this
Oh,
one.
no, that's all right.
All right, so Kim Abplanalp
Yeah, there you go.
is one of the lead researchers for the Common Tern Raft project. It's a cooperative project for Maryland Coastal Bays Program, Department of Natural Resources, and Audubon Mid-Atlantic. Her duties in part were to help monitor, maintain, and respond to the growth of the raft and make adaptations, as well as banding both adults and chicks for tracking the colony. And she'll be shortly telling us what all that's about. She's a project photographer for Audubon and recently published in the Chesapeake Bay magazine. What was not in here is that Saving Island Birds article won first place in Boating Writer International's annual writing contest for the environmental awareness category. So congratulations. Kim has a Bachelor of Science from the University of Delaware, which, oh, by the way, has a bird mascot. And a background in behavioral study of horseshoe crabs in Lewis, Delaware for the University of Florida, which pivoted her focus to the growing needs of colonial water birds, bird migration, and the need to restore and maintain breeding habitats. Avid birder, she resides in West Ocean City, Maryland. Thanks, Kim.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Oh,
Hi there. How many of you have know about the Tern Raft? Yeah. It's plopped in the middle of Chincoteague Bay. Is that good?
Feel free to wander around. We can follow you.
Okay, so this is Dave Brinker. How many people know Dave Brinker? He is just, I can't even begin to tell you how privileged I am to work with that. He is the designer, the creator of this project. So really my name should not be first, it's only because I'm talking. But he is instrumental and my mentor, and I'm deeply grateful. So, but I work for Maryland Coastal Bays Program, and that is one of the 28 national estuary programs across the country that is funded by the EPA because it's considered a critical area. And so it's 5 bays that consist of, here's my pointer, Assateague Bay up here, Isle of Wight in there, Chincoteague, which is right at Ocean City, and then Newport Bay is right back in here, and then all of this is Chincoteague Bay. And that is where the raft is actually right there. Can you see it?
Yeah.
And so we work under the Clean Water Act. And I'm the bird habitat coordinator for them. Okay, so we have 3 state listed endangered water birds in Maryland right now. One is the common tern, black skimmer, and the royal tern. So back here, this is a chart that says back 20 years ago, we had about 520 pairs of common terns, royal terns about 500, black skimmers about 100. It was never a real strong area for black skimmers, but we had them, and we had 100 pairs. 20 years later, actually, this is pretty relevant to today. This is 2020, but there's 0 black skimmers nesting in Maryland. I did the 5-year birding atlas this year for DNR, and we had no pairs of black skimmers. We had no successful pairs of royal terns. That was because of flood event. But we did have success with common terns. So the reason why we've had this steady decline, of course, and I just got back from Fort Lauderdale with a Waterbird Society meeting, and there were 300 scientists there, all working with waterbirds, and we all were saying, we were all giving presentations, and we were all saying the same thing. And that had to do with loss of nesting habitat, basically because of the erosion of sand islands, due to sea level rise and climate change, the severity of storms and the frequency of storms. So, for example, here, Mark 12, this was dredge material built in 2014. The vegetation was restored both by planting and natural vegetation, but by 2017, the vegetation was established by 2017, but 5 years later, it's completely gone. The other reason is the changes in the sediment dynamic and the creation of the Ocean City Inlet in 1933. And what that did was it really broke a cycle of how islands get replenished. Prior to 1933, this was just, here's Assateague, obviously, and Assateague was just one big barrier island going all the way up through Ocean City. And the cycle would be a big storm would come in, there'd be a natural breach, bring in all that sand, the breach would close up. And then the hydrodynamics of the inland bays would just build these islands up. But in 1933, they decided to harden that breach and make it permanent, and that's the Ocean City Inlet. And so it's not necessarily that a lot of sand comes in through the Ocean City Inlet, a lot of it goes out. So it's not that it's going out, but it's, just about it going out. It's just that the whole dynamics, the whole geomorphology and the hydrodynamics of the whole inland bays has changed. And so there's a ton of sand, but it's swirling all around. If a lot of people know when you're down there near Skimmer Island, sometimes there's a lot of sand, sometimes there's little, but it's all shallow water through there. And so that it just broke a cycle that had been going on for centuries and centuries. So here, a lot of you might know Skimmer Island, and this is what it looked like just 13 years ago. And you can see there's vegetation here. And then even up at like 6th Street Flats here, there was vegetation there. And there it was in 2021.
Oh.
So, sometimes there's a little bit more sand, especially in the wintertime. Sometimes there's not, it comes and goes. It's now just a staging area for a lot of migratory birds, but it's no longer a nesting island. Some of the reasons are predation as well: herring gulls and great blackback gulls, crows, great horned owls, fox and raccoons. The fox and raccoons more have to do with along the shoreline than it does on an island. One of the reasons why colonial waterbirds like islands is because there aren't mammalian predators, but there's plenty of herring gulls and great blackback gulls and great horned owls. The other reason is human disturbance. This is a great photo, actually, because it shows this new planting of this grass, and yet here are people on a little island that they're not supposed to be on. So that's always problematic. So we came up with a short-term solution, and that is to build an artificial raft in the middle of a bay. And so we started with a couple of guys. You can't see them here, but there's a couple of local guys who are great at wood all their lives. And we built a wooden frame right here on top of 9 floats per raft. And the reason for that is this little raft right here is 8 by 16. And that size is because we want it to be amphibian and we want it to roll in and out of a boat slip. So then once they're out in the water, then we latch these pieces, these 8 by 16, you'll see in a minute, rafts together with these custom made logs that we found from TS Ironworks. And they have, you see it up top here, they have this ability to be very fluid and flex a lot. And that was one of the keys. Like here you'll see, here is the finished float. It has 6 wheeled floats and 3 in the center that are not wheeled, but there's 9 floats. The wooden piece is right on top, rolls down the ramp, and immediately becomes a floating vessel. Then once it's out on the water, we put 2 of them together with these metal plates, and that creates one 16 by 16 raft that we put substrate on. Yeah, Dave Person right there. And we had to make them work. I said, here's the shovel. And then so clamshell there at the substrate, and then we tow it out. And then once we tow it out, we put 9 of them together. And so this was missing 2, or maybe it was just 1 more was just coming here. Nope, 2 more. So, Anyway, then we put together. So the process is we have a 8 by 16, they're joined together to create a, actually that's wrong, it should be 16 by 16. And then we tow it 2.5 miles away. We put it together and it ends up being 48 by 48. The finishing touches is we add this carpet over the edges once we put them together, and that's so that the little babies won't fall through. And then we have little edges, parapets along the sides, so again, they don't fall off. So, aren't they cute? Look at that little guy.
Are those real terns or those like,
Oh yeah, there's decoys. Oh, wait, I'm getting to that.
okay, so.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So the first year was 2021. We built it, and this was the size. We started with that one and had 24 nesting birds on there. So we immediately went to the next size, and we put those 4, we just separated, put them in the 4 corners and added 5 more sections. So the last 2 years, we've had a 48 by 48 raft, 2,300 square feet, and it weighs 68,000 pounds. Isn't that cool? I know you'll hear me say that the whole time. Okay, so now here we go. There are those locks in action. So the one, I know, isn't that wild? So the one up top also was the small raft. And you can see that that fluctuation is much greater. Once the raft gets heavier down here, it's not as extreme. So that was an advantage to the extra weight that we didn't even know. These are real terns right here. They're just hunkering down. This was before they built any nests, just the timing. And that's going to be relevant later when you see another slide. But they were just hunkering down there. So it is a navigational vessel. It is anchored, and this was a key that David spent a lot of time researching this anchor. This is called a plow anchor. And what it does is instead of just, if it's pulled, just drag along the bottom, it doesn't behave that way. It goes straight down and dives. It invests itself even greater, going straight down. And so we have 4 of those. And then we have 4 running lights, since it is a floating vessel in the middle of it stays put, but we want people to know about it at night. So it withstood, 2 storms that were, up to 60 miles per hour gusts. So here's the raft completed, and you'll see there's actually much more material. This is a little premature, this photo, because there's much more habitat on there than that. Here's the cost paid for by the Department of Natural Resources Wildlife Heritage Center. And this is material cost. The big cost is the wheeled floats. So if you didn't have to, like if you lived in an area where it wasn't subject to weather the way we are, we can't keep it out in the cold weather. It would really reduce the lifespan of this. We're hoping that this raft lasts about 10 years. We're going into our 4th year. Then you wouldn't necessarily need to do the wheeled floats. You could just do floats. But for us, this is a key element. Then we paid the guys, and then the ironworks. Yeah, we paid them. Okay, so operating designs. On the raft, we have 2 solar panels, and in there are 3 car batteries that runs 4 cameras, 4 running lights, a Wi-Fi hotspot, and a Vocalure during the day. And there's Dave Brinker. And this is what I call, if you know David, it's called the rig, or at least I call it the rig, because Dave is so talented at rigging things up and making them always work. It's just amazing. Now here, because you're birders, I included this guy because he got Smartest Tern on the Raft Award, because he just made a nest underneath one of these solar panels and had shade 24/7. Yeah, smartest raft, smartest Tern on the raft. So then we added decoys and broadcast calls for social attraction. This guy is trying to have a conversation with 2 decoys up here. It's not getting, this one's just fine. look how mad it is. Fine, I won't talk to you. You don't talk to me. And I hate to put human emotions on a bird, but sometimes it's just really hilarious. There's a comic moment. And then these guys, this is courtship going on here and here. We use vocal lure during the day at the beginning of the season, and as soon as there's enough terns on the raft, then we turn that off because then they can take care of themselves. And then we turn it off at night because we're not that far from Assateague. Assateague proper is right across the way, and we don't want to draw attention of a great horned owl.
Mhm.
So that turns off at night. Then we have chick shelters. Oh, this is the jiggy part. And I loved this moment. I was waiting. It was really hard for me to focus because he was in the back of the thing. So I just waited and then boom, it came into focus and I was happy about that. So we added chick shelters. These are corner ones. They really gravitate to those corner ones. And then we have different size chick houses that both the adults, sometimes if it's really hot, an adult will, duck under there too. And then we have artificial grass. We added that the second year and they really like it. A lot of times one group will nest on one side of the plant and then the other one on the other, sort of like a nice neighbor with a fence in between you. And it really added quite a lot. Then we had to make some adaptations, and the reason was the first year we had 24 nests, and I'll get into that, but there's lots of space on the raft. And then in subsequent years, we had more nests, more chicks, more population, everything. And so when a chick is learning how to fly, oh, here are teenagers up here. It's like a teenage hangout. When there's chicks begin to fly, they might have enough muscle strength to launch off the raft, but then they'll end up in the water. And then they may not have enough muscle strength to lift off the water. So they need a way to get back on the raft because it's up, it's got these walls. So they plop in the water and then just literally paddle on over. Common terns are incredible problem solvers. So we only needed one ramp and they will go even all the way around the raft to find the ramp. And a lot of times they're called by their parents and then they just waddle on over. There's actually a little platform right here. It's like I used a pallet and carpeted a pallet. And it's on, this is hinged right here, and it's hinged up at the top, and then it floats. So they just crawl up on the top of that and then walk the plank up. And then we added a little mini raft. This is like a landing pad, and that's for them to practice. And they will, like someone will come in and like skid across and just keep on going. And some will land. I mean, it's really fun just to watch from a comic relief point. And then some, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. And then some of the chicks will still be demanding of their parents to come feed them at the teenage hangout, which is crazy. But you know how teenagers are. So this is these are really young birds here, just beginning to fly. And then sometimes there's, 30 over here because they think it's the coolest spot in the world. So here, look how little this first raft was the first year. Now we got this out late the first year because of permitting issues. And so we didn't get it out until May 4th. And our first common tern egg was June 23rd. The subsequent years, we got it out April 12th, April 11th, and so that was 3 weeks earlier, but we had the first egg a month earlier. So date mattered. So colony site tenacity. In the first year, we banded 19 adult birds. And the second year in 2022, 15 of the 19 came back. Then in 2022, we banded another 92 birds. Going to give you a hint about the success. And the following year in 2023, 88 of the 111 birds we banded in the first 2 years came back for another 75%. And the number might be a slightly higher. That's only 88 birds that I was able to see and photograph. So it could be even slightly higher. So this year, we got the raft out April 11th, and our first bird, OH1, I know this bird really well, showed up on April 15th. You do, you get to know the birds after a while. It's like, oh, OH1, I know him.
We know you.
So here we are monitoring reproductive success. I spent a lot of time on a boat, as you see, going in and out. And so there's weekly platform visits. We record the nest contents, and every week, so we record the nest contents, so if it has 2 eggs, 1 egg, 3 eggs, so we understand that, where they are, we plot them. And that gives us the ability to target which nests have been, an adult bird has been sitting on for 2 weeks before we'll band it. We want it to be really invested in that nest before we try to capture it, because if they're not broody, if they're not really invested, and you try to capture an adult bird too soon, it'll take off, it'll abandon the nest. So that's one of the reasons why we do that weekly nest contents. Then we band adults and chicks. I used my photography a lot more than we thought we would, just because it's a great way to really have proof and documentation of the science behind this and the success of the raft. Now, here was an adaptation that here I am in a bicycle hat, and that was because I was on the raft at first, and the first year was fine. No one, there was only 24 nests. Second year, much different, and you'd hear me saying, ow, 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 and because these birds were just dive bombing. And I walked by my shed one day and I saw my bicycle hat, and I was like, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So now we use that. There's Dave again, banding. Oh, that little baby's gonna band right away. And look, he's got his tooth on there, his little tooth, he's so little. Because their legs don't get any wider, they just get longer, which is really cool. And so when we're nesting adults, when we're trapping adults, we put dummy eggs. We remove the real eggs and put dummy eggs on top, and then we put them in an egg incubator while we're banding. And it's not until after we release the bird, it's not until we see either that bird or its mate on what they believe is their eggs, even though they're fake eggs, that we'll put the eggs back. So it's a lot of visual use of binoculars a lot, and we just make sure that there is a bird back before we return the real eggs.
What do you do if they don't?
Well, they always do. There's probably been one time where we just had to leave, and it'd been a little while. Sometimes what happens is one of the pairs, because they both incubate evenly, one of the pairs will take off, and one of them will say, all right, I'll see you later, honey. I'll be back this afternoon. And they will. They'll go 12 miles, 20 miles. Did I do that?
Yes, you did.
Okay. And can we get it back?
Yes, you did. Just like that.
And so, then you capture the mate, and it takes off. It's now disgusted with the whole thing, and it takes off, but it doesn't know, the other mate doesn't know that, it's been captured. And so you just have to wait it out. Usually it's not that long. Sometimes it can be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Sometimes it's, an hour, but for the most part. And then this is just a few captures of life raft. This is a little courtship here, demanding chick right there. Here, look at that guy. This guy's just chilling right here. Looks like he's gonna, he was just adorable. Here's 2 different chicks there. Another courtship. And I've included this slide for you, or this photo for you right here, because this is a 1-year-old common tern. And common terns do not come back or do not come to breed until they're 2 or 3 years old. So it's very, I didn't even recognize what this bird was at first. It came by and we were all like, what the heck? And I thought it was a gull-billed tern at first, I just didn't know. And it's a 1-year-old common tern. He was just like, hey, and we couldn't capture him because he didn't come until mid-season this year. And it took them about 5 days to accept him into the colony. And then he hung out the rest of the summer. But anyway, that guy's anxious to be part of a colony, but he was back in, just a year old. That's very unusual. And then chicks. This guy thinking that he's gonna have a meal from a decoy. These two, look, you look that way, I'll look this way. Then this shows you the different variations of so you can have a light chick and then a darker one. And this guy's just, look how plump he is. Oh my God, he's being fed well. And I don't know if you can tell that this is 3 chicks from one nest. And look, his little wing is over his brother or sister right here. That was another magic moment. That was in the evening. And this guy, I like his strategy. Mom, Dad, you just stay right there. I'm just gonna tuck right under there. So it's pretty fun to see. Here's what's for dinner. What we found was that there was all these different species coming home. American sandland, spot, menhaden, Atlantic silverside, very strong a lot of times, also menhaden. Bay anchovies were really popular. A sand crab came back that I don't know, I didn't see it really eaten. Sometimes a bird will come back with, one came back with a lizardfish. If any of you know what a lizardfish, they're about this long. And so it was bigger than the chick. So that stayed on the raft and just decayed. But anyway, a flounder came back, little flounders. So here they are. But this year, I seem to be missing, maybe not missing. Okay, I put this in a little different place. This year was the first time where we had some sadness. And that was at the end of June this year, we had a 3 or 4 day storm event. And it blew and rained consistently for 3 or 4 days, 32 miles per hour. And it couldn't have been at the worst time. It was mid-hatch like this. And so what that means is that one of the adults was either sitting on 1 chick and 2 eggs. They usually have 3 eggs in their clutch. Or they had 2 chicks and 1 egg. And it meant the one adult had to stay incubating the nest. And it meant the other parent had to do it all, had to try to feed both adults and the chicks in 32-mile-an-hour winds in water that you couldn't see the fish, because it's so turned up. It was because we have cameras monitoring it to watch that. I will tell you that to watch their effort was something I have not seen. They worked tirelessly. It was the saddest thing, and we didn't know how bad it was until when I was able to get out there right after. This is a pile, unfortunately, of dead chicks that were all huddled together, died of starvation and exposure. And unfortunately, I still feel like I'm missing a slide. We'll see. Let me look ahead. So unfortunately, when I went out there, there were 89 dead chicks right after. And through that week, probably ended up with about 110 dead chicks. So we lost some of our chicks. But then here, chicks growing up, we had all these chicks that made it. And so this shows you, let me go back, them growing up, becoming teenagers, hanging out. They really like hang out in little corners of the raft, like the same 2 will be over here, the other 2 pair will be over here. Yeah, I think I'd like this slide to be a little sooner. So season summaries. First year, we had 23 nests in 2021. The second year, we had 155 nests. And this past year, we had 323 nests.
Wow.
So what was really interesting about, and then look at that moment right there, just the sweetest little thing. But what was really interesting about this year, so this is the first year, it got in late in May, went up just, so we had 24 nests. The next year, it just went boom, boom, boom in a gradual little arc. This year, it shot up. It was 132 nests in the first week. I did not get to that number until mid-July last year. So this was by the end of May 28th. That's how broody they were. That's how ready they were. And it has to do with that tenacity of knowing where home is now. This is the third year. Some of them just beelined it back. They didn't need directions. They just made it back and they were ready. It was stunning. I mean, the first day I had 4 nests. 2 days later, I went out, it was 32 nests. 2 days later after that, it was 93 nests. And in 7 days, I had 134 nests. I was like, what? It was really crazy. So they were ready. So, and let's see, chicks fledged. So we had 22 the first year out of the 23 nests, 148 out of the 155. I'm going here out of the 155, and only 170 out of the 323. But again, about 110 died from that one storm event. So it would have been up towards the same, almost means chick fledged per nest, almost 1 per nest. That was the only thing that stopped it, because nest success was even 83, 81, 80 respectively. And it was only the storm event that prevented the outcome. The good thing is that we still had 170 chicks fledged this past year, 148 and 22. So, we're already at 340 or so new chicks of common terns that we haven't had until now. So that's the good news. So there it shows that we're back to this graph, but here it shows 2021, 2022, and 2023. So that in 3 years, we have recovered more than half of the population of common terns in just 20 years. Historically, we used to have up to 900 common terns, probably 40 years ago. So even that, we've recovered 1/3 of the population. So that is pretty cool. So nesting platform conclusions, successful, yes. However, it is just a temporary nesting habitat substitute, where our permanent solution is still restoring sand islands. The long-term goal is that. The enlarged raft size was better, and an earlier launch date mattered for the terns. And then we had 155 nests in 2022 versus 23 in 2021 because of that date shift. And then this year, 323 nests. Oh, this has a little play button. You see it?
Where is?
It should be there. Push on that and see if it. Oh. Does it on mine?
Give me a moment.
Yeah, sorry. We're on a pause.
Whoops.
Whoops. That's not what we wanted.
Where am I? You've got to move forward.
Forward. There, it should play. Isn't that amazing? So that's all the debris that grows in one season. And here's a photo of it here. And yet those tires still roll.
Yeah.
And we scrape them, in the winter and get them back to where they were fresh. And then we do it all over again. But it is phenomenal that they come out like that and then just wheel away. They're just wondrous. Look at all this. that's grown on
Well
here.
designed.
I'll do it again. We store them at a buddy of mine's place right near South Point Boat Ramp, and Mr. Johnson, Tom Johnson, are gracious to store them right on his property, which is right smack dab next to the boat ramp there. Proposed long-term strategy is to recover the breeding populations of the common tern, the royal tern, and the black skimmer to historical peak levels in Maryland. Focus on the inland bays. Originally, the idea was to have the tern raft. What black skimmers tend to like is they like to be in the periphery of a colony, on a common tern colony, and they use that in part to help protect them. They're not as agile as a common tern, so they use the colony to help, protect the chicks and things like that. Where we put this, we put it in the middle of Chincoteague Bay. Now, 75% of Chincoteague Bay lives in Maryland. The other 25% lives in Chincoteague, just so you understand. So 75% of Chincoteague Bay is in Maryland waters. But we put it down there because it's the least populated area. We thought, we'll just try this, see if we can, especially be away from human activity. But what we found since then, because we also have black skimmer decoys on there, excuse me, originally, is that they're really not interested in being that far from the inlet. It's about 12 miles. They like a portal out. They like to skim through the bays and then portal out into the ocean. A lot of times, like this time of year, you'll see them roosting right on the beach. It's sort of, Ocean City is a pretty known rest stop for black skimmers from New Jersey, New York, or whatever. We'll have 200, 300, 400 black skimmers right now. They're just starting to go now, but all through October and November. But they like having access to the ocean. So if we build a second raft, we'll bring it up north of like the Verrazano Bridge, where you go over to Assateague, probably up right there. But you have to be careful because of, jet skis and boaters and things like that. So where the tern raft is located, it's really removed from that kind of activity. Here is just an example of what happens with the royal terns. Royal terns, on the other hand, are not good problem solvers. And this is an island called Reedy Island. It's right behind 54th Street in Mackey's. And what this is you can see these are laughing gulls. It's the largest colony of laughing gulls in the state of Maryland. And the royal terns used to be on the periphery of that on sandy beaches. Those sandy beaches have eroded away, and now it's just this grass. And so the royal terns keep trying to nest in the middle of the laughing gulls, which is a really bad strategy. And just because, they just are such predators. So you'll see here, there's a little rack here, and then they'll try to lay an egg on that. Royal terns only lay one egg per couple. And this year it was phenomenal out of nowhere. All of a sudden we had 380 eggs. That meant nesting pairs of royal terns on that island. But that storm event that killed the chicks wiped out that island. And so all the eggs were pulled together in one big pile. And then they don't know. I mean, they'll incubate a different egg, but not when they're just all piled together. It was probably 100 eggs in one pile, and then another group of 50 and things like that. So we are in the process of trying to restore this island for the royal terns. And this is an example. So this is Reedy Island. This is the 1989 shoreline, and then here 2019 shoreline. So it's really diminished quite a bit. And then this is a design that we had done for us that has a little bit different design because of the things that we saw like in Skimmer Island or Mark IV. Can't just put dredge spoils on top and think that's going to be enough. So we're adding these sort of headways right there, which if you go along, it's really interesting. If you go along many coastline, it can be in Scotland, Ireland, England, up on the Cape is another really example. A lot of times, if you look at where the shoreline has not eroded or decayed, they have these little crescent shaped areas that they sort of they sort of protect a little crescent shaped area of land. Particularly in Scotland, you see this a lot. So it sort of breaks the force of the water in. And the other thing, a lot of times you'll see this in restoration areas around marshes and all, and they'll have a hard wall, like a big stone brick wall, and it crashes against it. Now the thinking is to do a gradual so that the water like glides up and over and out and dissipates and things like this. So this is a big effort for Reedy Island where those laughing gulls are and the royal terns are. And then this whole area up here would be, if you see, this is for sand here and sand here and sand here, where either we could get royal terns, common terns, royal terns and common terns could both go up there in that sandy area. That's where they traditionally were. And then here where the laughing gulls were. So they were good neighbors for many, many, many years, but now this has been reduced so much that the royal terns aren't nesting here, they're nesting in here with the laughing gulls. So that's one of our projects that we're working on now. The hardship is permitting. It's really hard to get everyone on board. One of the reasons that we're seeing with Maryland Coastal Bays in some of our efforts is that for many years, we did conservation work throughout the state of Maryland. And so that meant you protect this and I'll protect this and you protect that. We are now having to shift into restoration. And that's very different than conservation in the sense that you have to act, you have to make actions, and then you have to do something. That might be crossing a marsh in order to get to there. You're not going to damage it completely, but the guys who don't want anyone on their mark, it's just really hard to make this mental shift for a lot of people who have been doing it one way for so many years. So we're in the process of really having to sort of step up with the communication, the information, the education, so that everyone's on board. Oh, there we go. There's my volunteers. So there's a group of, we're really fortunate. There's a group of locals, Maryland Coastal Bays, the Department of Forestry, Audubon, DNR, a whole bunch of us who get together, and we have a great crew who comes together every spring and every fall. And then there we go. Beautiful sunset.
My slides was missing, or else we must have, I think one of my slides was missing, or we must have jumped over it, or I deleted it.
Hold on to this so that you
Oh,
can
yeah.
answer questions.
Okay.
It's in there. I put it down.
These are finite, obviously, these are floating islands. Any idea what the maximum number of nests that they'll accommodate? Or are you
Oh yeah, that's a crazy question. The question is, for you guys looking online is, what's the carrying capacity of this raft? And the answer is we don't know. It's one of the things. No one has taken on this big of a project anywhere in the world, actually. This is the largest floating island in the world. And a lot of people have used barges or old pontoon boats that just had a platform or laid out kind of thing. But what we have seen in some of the smaller ones, especially some of the barges throughout North America, is potentially 4 times as much as we have.
Really?
Yeah. Which then I'll be that person, meaning me, and David will probably be mad by then. It's just very challenging. It's a good challenge. It's really fun. It's super fun when they come back and they start making nests and you're, drawing where that nest is and seeing everyone, it's really, really fun. But it is quite, it's quite something. You get on that raft and there's a lot going on. I do think, for what I've seen with the 323 nests, some of that 323, I would say there was probably maybe 30 nests of the 323 of couples restarting again. The only advantage of the storm happening in the end of June is they still had time to lay another nest. Some abandoned completely, but some, it was very stressful for them. So it was really interesting watching them after the storm, and that it was a different year than the year before. They did have more stress. I don't know if it was from the storm, or I don't know if it was because of the numbers on the raft, but I do see there's still plenty of space right now on the raft. There's areas where they haven't, it's really funny. There's popular spots, and it's almost like, ethnic neighborhoods. These guys are over here and these guys are over here. It's really interesting where they gravitate to first. And then, but there's still plenty of room right now. Talk to me in 4 years and then, we'll see.
Hi, you mentioned that you had, this is about 10 years. What future plans do you have for other projects?
Meaning the raft?
For rafts?
Yeah. Well, we keep mulling that over. It's a lot of manpower. It's a lot of manpower. It's a lot of money, and it's a lot of time, but we have a lot of interest, meaning the ones who are doing it. It's about getting everyone on board, getting the funding, all of that. So it's, 108,000 is what it costs to construct it. It does not include the manpower of like me and my staff and volunteers and all that. It's lots of coordination. We are out there twice a week, banding. We do chicks one day and adults the other. We're very invested in that banding because we can't really tell. I just went down to Florida and told about our success. Well, if we don't know in what way, we can't just say, oh, there's a bunch of birds out there. Well, what birds? And who are they? And have they been here the last 2 years? So we have documentation. Now we're going to get into this coming year, and the next year is our babies are going to be coming back for the first time. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I'll be like, oh, I haven't seen you since you were weeping. And so it'll be really exciting, so I don't, we don't know, but we're hoping to get at least one more made so that we can try for those black skimmers. Hi.
Hi, I don't know if I caught you very clearly. You mentioned that this year, because of the storm, there is like over 100 chicks died.
Yes.
So I on the list, it seems that you have 170 chicks
that lived.
So I'm just wondering, in future, if there is a storm like this, do you just leave the chicks, leave the nature taking care of the procedure, or we should interfere in the process to protect more chicks?
Yeah, it's really hard. If they're having a hard time navigating and I'm on a boat, it's really hard for me to navigate in a storm like that. So it's really hard to do that. The other thing is that you just can't disturb the raft like that, the whole nesting. Once we get on, if we went out there, there's a storm, everyone's trying to hunker down as much as possible. If we got on the raft, it'd be even more chaos. Everyone would be running. We wouldn't know who to return what chick to what nest or this or that. They will raise another chicks, another nest chicks from time to time, but a lot of times they reject them too. So we try to always make sure we're giving chicks back to the right nests, kind of thing. But also it's just really hard to navigate in a storm. I like to don't go out on a boat more than 20 miles per hour, let alone 32, so it's really tough. The other thing is, in the first video where the Elsa was going up and down, I could go back there, but there were nests in that storm But they were on eggs only. And so they just hunkered down on top of those nests, rode out the storm, and we had no we had no loss of eggs. It was just the timing. What happened is we had those 134 nests in the first week, and that storm was exactly when they were hatching. And it was like the perfect worst timing. That's all, because they were mid-hatch and there was just nothing you can do. I do give them a lot of respect for the effort they made. It was amazing. Yes.
Oh, so David mentioned at the Frederick Bird Club that
David Kirsten,
yeah.
from Audubon.
So he said that they were not going to try to be super, and I'm not exactly wording it, huge amount of time on this because of money or effort, because they want us here in Maryland to restore the beaches.
Restore the islands.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we have to, it's Dave Kirsten, Audubon hasn't been doing a lot with us lately, but they're focused on the saltmarsh sparrow right now down Deal Island and other places.
Irish Grove.
And Irish Grove, right, exactly. And so they're, working on that. So the marshes is one thing, and then the islands is the second thing. This is really, a stopgap measure in between, but the process of rebuilding an island is just tedious. I've been on phone calls with, the Corps, MDE, all the players kind of thing. And literally I'm just like, you make no sense. I mean, it just is like, no, all right, if we've already always done it that way, we're not in the past anymore. We're here now. And that means we have to come up with a different, we all want the same outcome. We're all trying to do the same thing. Let's coordinate. But it's a really sticky process. It is, because everyone wants the dredge spoils for one. Assateague wants some, or a lot of people want them, so that's part of the game, There's a lot of demand, and yet there's a lot of waste too. Some things get dredged and then just get piled in a dredge dump spot because not all the permitting has come through and this and that. It can be exasperating, and at the same time, there's a lot of people trying to do a lot of good things and making a lot of effort. So, including all the people in those organizations. So I don't want to sound disrespectful, but it's almost like, trying to dance together at the same time. Everyone has different agendas or different focal points and this and that. So yeah, it's a process.
I don't know if this will make sense to you, but my observation is the birds have come back to a unnatural substrate.
Yep.
They're used to solid ground.
Yep.
And now they have to navigate, learn a new behavior.
Yeah, not much new behavior. Yeah.
Up and down,
Yeah.
floating, whatever.
Yeah.
But that doesn't seem to have interfered with their reproductive capacity or raising
Success,
young.
right.
Success.
Right. I mean, I spend a lot of time out in the islands because I'm on, I was doing the census, and I spend a lot of time on all 5 bays by boat. And it's not much difference. Like in a storm event, for example, would have had the same fatality because the birds would have tried to get in the grasses and hide and this and that, but they wouldn't have been fed, and the one parent would have still been trying to incubate the other and this and that. So there's not much difference. Our success rate with that one mean clutch is about the same as in nature. And the only difference really is that it's floating up. In a natural island, there'd be sand on a slope. And so when the birds try to fly, they go in the water and then they just walk over to the island and walk on out and back to that. So that's the only step. And that's why we put the ramp up there that has been very successful. Otherwise than that, it's a plot of land, and they're looking for a plot of land that is void of mammals. Yeah.
Are you accepting volunteers for 2024?
Yes.
And if so, do you provide training?
Oh yeah. I throw you in basically. Here, grab this bird, hold it. It is pretty much, I'm being truthful, but at the same time, yeah, we take care of everyone. It's amazing, process that we have. We do limit it to adults, so sometimes, a teenager might want to come out and they're just not ready to handle. You have to watch every single step. You can imagine with clamshell substrate and an egg that looks the same coloring, you have to be mindful of every single footstep, and but yeah, we throw you right in there and get you going pretty fast.
Have you had interesting recoveries off the banded birds? Recovery meaning a different site.
Oh, no, they haven't been, because they're nesting nowhere else in the inland bays.
They have not been
They've been
discovered on
in
the
South-
rendering grounds? Or
Oh,
anything
no, in
like
South
that?
America, yeah, we're getting the list soon from the scientist Gabrielle down there. They're going to Punta Rasa, and our bands are down there, and it's so funny because he gets so many birds and so many banded birds that he's like, well, what do yours look like? We're like, they're white with black lining, and he was gonna send us a list, and so yeah, we have our birds. I sort of want to go down there. I went to Peru last year and saw Common Terns, but they weren't ours because I was on the other side, and they're on the other side of South America, basically. But it would be nice to go down there and,
One more. Do you feel you've been there long enough to see if the birds are site specific from year to year
Yeah.
on the raft?
yeah, some are like, we have this Buenos Aires, bird that had an orange flag on it, so we can't ban that bird, but we were able to trap it because it nested this year. The first year it was on the raft and it didn't pair up with anyone. Second year it came back same, well, we don't know if it was the same bird, it was another bird with an orange flag, but we caught it this year because he was in a pair, and he was banded down in South America. But when he landed on the raft, I go, he's going to be over in that southwest corner. And Dave Brinker was like, well, how do you know that? I go, that's where you hung out last year. And I just knew it. And there are some, like, I'm like, oh, like OH1, the first guy back, he liked the southwest corner of the raft, There's little, there's little clicks going on, and all that. It's pretty funny. And then there's quite a few that I know, oh, he's heading to the north part of the raft. He likes that north side. South prevailing wind in the summer a lot of times. So some, so they'll get a little splash on the south side. So a lot of the really, astute birds will go on the north side. If I were a tern, I'd go on the north side.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Oh, you're one. No, we do, because they're colonial birds, so they're going to ward off everyone. We do have some, no, the second year we did have one pair of oyster catchers. And they fledged one chick. I named him Peter Pan because he was really rotten at flying at first. And unlike common terns, they really can't launch off the water. So I had to scoop him out of the water quite a few times. He would just be out there, just pulling. And then finally one day we were out on the raft and we were all doing something on the raft, and he flew in this circle and came back. I was like, Peter Pan. Yeah, it was cute. And he finally fledged, and we've seen him on Assateague this past year, and his parents now on Assateague, because we told him to pick a different spot for this year. It's just too hard for an oyster catcher. So that was it. And then the other question I often get asked from birding groups is, were there any predators? And the only time we have not had a great horned owl, but we did have a 1-year-old herring gull this year that spent the night, even though he was dive bombed, which is really unusual. He took about 4 nest contents probably. But that was it. I mean, that we've been really fortunate that we haven't had particularly a great one. Oh, I know we're running out of time.
Right, thanks.
Yeah.
Hello.
course, for all our speakers, we have the highly coveted coin. We don't have the hats yet. Do we have that for you? I didn't take that from that. We got a couple extras. We got the mobile camera team here.
Uh,